The main hall of the Grand Meridian Hotel was filled with excitement and anticipation. Businessmen, politicians, and journalists from everywhere had gathered. On the brilliantly lit stage, Usha Vance dazzled in a seductive, form-fitting blue dress as she declared,
"People often ask me how it feels now that JD is the vice president. I'll be honest, it feels a bit strange. Because this is the man who once sat across from me at the dinner table, chewing on a sandwich and saying, 'You know, Usha, I don't think I'm cut out for politics. Washington is like a swamp full of alligators.'"
A murmur of awe and exclamations of, "Oh!" echoed throughout the room, mixed with astonished stares. And what happened next? Under the shimmering lights of the U.S. Capitol, the Grand Meridian Hotel exuded a dazzling and seductive aura like an enchanting nighttime paradise. Every corner of the hotel radiated luxury, from the crystal chandeliers suspended from the ceiling like falling stars, to the red carpets that stretched along the entrance to the event area. It was not only a gathering place for the powerful, but also the backdrop for dramatic stories. A stage where powerful souls met, clashed, and intertwined with unsaid secrets. That evening, the main hall of the hotel brimmed with excitement and anticipation. Businessmen, politicians, and journalists from all over had come, each carrying their own stories, plans, and worries about the future. Among them, no one could overlook the striking presence of Donald Trump. With his signature smile and piercing eyes, he stood at the center, hands tucked into his vest pockets, as if awaiting a special moment to shine. A silent performance reserved for those who could read his thoughts. Trump's gaze wasn't merely superficial. It contained a keen insight, ever ready to catch every minute detail of any unfolding event. Amid that bustling atmosphere, J.D. Vance, the man who had just assumed the role of vice president, exuded a calm demeanor tinged with anxiety. He stood beside Trump, his eyes never leaving the scene around him, as if, in every moment, he was evaluating and weighing every word and gesture of those around him. Yet perhaps what irritated and unnerved J.D. the most was his own suggestion to the organizers, a proposal to have Usha, the woman who always shone in his shadow, come up and introduce him before the main speech. The relationship between J.D. and Usha had always been filled with subtle nuances. Previously, J.D. had dreamed of a formal, intimate ceremony where the story of their family, the arduous journey from his days as a writer or commentator, would be recounted with gentle, heartfelt praise. He had imagined Usha speaking about the days when the two of them had overcome countless challenges together, about the faith and perseverance that had carried them to the pinnacle of their political careers. However, reality sometimes did not unfold as one might expect. Just as the atmosphere reached its peak of formality and anticipation, Usha gracefully stepped onto the stage. The sound of her high heels clicking on the polished wooden floor reverberated through the room like the rhythmic beating of an excited heart. She appeared with a cool beauty that was no less captivating, her glossy black hair neatly tied up, and eyes so sharp they seemed to pierce through everything. Every eye in the room immediately focused on her, yet no one could have foreseen that the next few minutes would become an unforgettable moment, leaving J.D. silently, inwardly wishing he could withdraw his original suggestion.
"Dear guests,"
Usha began, her voice warm yet resolute, like that of a storyteller opening a grand play.
"I am truly honored to stand here today, but to be honest, I never imagined I would ever stand before all of you to speak about this man, my husband, J.D. Vance."
Her opening words rang out like deep, enchanting notes, transforming the atmosphere in the room in an instant. J.D. stood there amidst the glittering scene, yet inside he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He managed a slight smile, trying to hide his unease, and not forgetting to glance at Trump, the old acquaintance who was always meticulously watching every development. J.D. had hoped this would be nothing more than a warm family story, but then Usha continued in an unpredictable manner.
"People often ask me how it feels now that JD is the vice president. I'll be honest, it feels a bit strange. Because this is the man who once sat across from me at the dinner table, chewing on a sandwich and saying, 'You know, Usha, I don't think I'm cut out for politics. Washington is like a swamp full of alligators.
Laughter echoed throughout the room, yet it carried a hint of awkwardness, as if none of them were quite sure whether the remark was merely a humorous quip or a half-hearted confession. JD felt small waves of confusion ripple through his heart, while his hand gripped the edge of his vest, as if trying to cling to the dwindling calm. Trump's gaze, once confident, now had turned into a sharp, calculating stare, as if he were a master strategist carefully noting every move. Not stopping there, Usha continued to step into the center of the conversation, her voice shifting from warm to incisive, every word like a tiny dagger slicing through the tense atmosphere. And yet, now he's here, in the heart of that swamp. I guess he's learned to swim with the alligators, or at least try not to get devoured by them. Those words only heightened the tension, making the room seem to boil with every passing second. Laughter erupted again, this time ringing out with a sharp, satirical and mocking tone. JD could feel the curious stares and scrutinizing glances from the senators, the journalists, and the other distinguished guests. He felt as though he were being exposed under the stage lights of a play for which he had no script. A suffocating and bewildering sensation surged within him, yet he forced himself to maintain a composed facade, even as a storm of emotions raged inside. When Usha placed her hand on the podium, she paused for a moment, her eyes locking onto the crowd, as if to impart a profound message.
I have witnessed JD change through every stage, from a writer to a commentator, then a senator, and now the vice president. But I must say, sometimes I wonder whether Washington is ready for JD, or whether JD is ready for Washington.
That moment struck JD like a powerful shock to his mind. Every word Usha uttered seemed like a piece of a puzzle he had always tried to hide, but now that puzzle was laid bare before every pair of eyes. The room suddenly fell so silent that only the soft sound of gentle sighs from the onlookers could be heard, and a whispering murmur spread like a gust of wind through dry leaves, intensifying the mystery and tension. In that moment, JD felt as though he were standing between two worlds. On one side, the expectation and pride of the pinnacle he had reached, and on the other, the doubts and unkind criticisms from the very woman he had always trusted. Trump's eyes now shone even more sharply, as if he were recording every minute detail to use at some future moment. In JD's mind, Usha's words resonated like challenges, reminding him that beneath the veneer of success, there were fragments of the past and debts he must pay himself. After a tense pause, Trump finally spoke, his voice deep and measured,
carrying a profound meaning that only those who understood the political game could appreciate. How interesting. You sure have a wife who knows how to stir things up.
Trump's remark served as a reminder, a discreet appraisal of Usha's cunning. JD struggled to reclaim some of his lost confidence, casting a strained smile toward Trump before retorting sarcastically,
Yeah, she sure knows how to keep me on my toe.
The laughter in the room soon became chaotic, intermingled with tepid applause and the murmurs of the journalists. At that moment, the atmosphere was not just one of admiration for a vice presidential spouse or a newly inaugurated administration, but a mental showdown, a performance in which everyone was waiting to see if JD could muster a fitting response to those words. When Usha stepped down from the podium, she maintained a calm, confident demeanor, as if everything were well within her control. Her eyes fell steadily on JD, as if to silently convey that no matter what happened, she was by his side, ready to share both the joys and the sorrows. JD met that look with a forced smile and whispered under his breath, "Great speech, dear." As the crowd gradually dispersed into private conversations and hushed chatter, JD tried to regain some calm. Yet within him, the surge of emotion had not subsided. Usha's words had not only taken him by surprise, but had also opened a small crack in the perfect image he had so painstakingly built for himself. He wondered whether he was truly ready to face the criticisms and the scrutinizing stares from every direction. He knew that in the world of politics, so rife with scheming and subterfuge, any hint of weakness could be exploited. That night, after the official event had concluded, The atmosphere at the Grand Meridian Hotel was still filled with lively chatter. Journalists whispered among themselves, some even raising their phones to record every detail for tomorrow's news. Although no sensational headlines were being shouted out, Usha's remarks would undoubtedly remain an indelible piece in backstage conversations, in private congressional meetings, and in the internal letters of those well-versed in political secrets. As the guests gradually left the hall, JD remained quietly seated in the VIP room, his mind tangled with disappointment and an unnamed anxiety. He recalled the earlier days when his life seemed to revolve solely around books, modest press conferences, and dreams of a bright future, untarnished by sardonic remarks or scrutinizing stares. But now, his political career had transformed him into a public figure, with every word and every action meticulously analyzed. In the luxurious car on the way home, the streetlights passed by like fleeting, hazy streaks, reflecting the silhouette of JD sitting silently by the window. The atmosphere inside the car was so quiet that only soft background music could be heard, as if to soothe the storm of emotions raging within him. Usha sat beside him, her eyes watching him in silence until she finally broke the prolonged quiet.
Are you all right? I can see you're a bit tense.
She said gently. Her voice was soft, yet imbued with worry and understanding. JD turned to her, forcing a smile he had practiced hundreds of times in front of the mirror, as if to conceal his unnamed concerns.
I'm fine. Your speech was wonderful,
he replied. In that moment in the quiet darkness of the Capitol, perhaps only the two of them truly understood the cascade of emotions within. Usha looked at him for a while, her eyes probing his soul, then slowly nodded. She turned to gaze out the window, where the city lights seeped through each pane like memories that never fade. JD too directed his gaze outward, his mind adrift in thoughts, wondering if he was truly accepted in the treacherous world of politics. JD's political journey was not merely a tale of change, but a symphony of shifting emotions and difficult choices. Every word, every gesture from Usha now was not just praise or a playful jest, but a sign of an inevitable transformation. JD recalled the days when he was a dreamer, when he believed that truth, integrity, and faith would guide the future. But now, as the spotlight of politics shone brightly, he realized that truth is sometimes obscured by the blind paths of power and coercion. In those silent moments, JD wondered if he had the strength to face the unjust criticisms and the piercing stares of evaluation from both his colleagues and the public. He questioned whether he could ever reclaim the person he once was, a man passionate about fresh ideas, unafraid of change and challenge, or if he had already been swept into a vortex of power, where trust and belief in himself were gradually fading. Those thoughts grew even more serious as he recalled Trump's words that night. The subtle reminder from his old colleague left him pondering. Do those around him always find a way to make him feel insecure, constantly posing questions he could not answer? Trump, whom he had once regarded as a strategic friend, had now become a mirror reflecting doubts and the weaknesses he so desperately wanted to hide. The contrast between Trump's confident exterior and his cunning remarks left JD even more troubled about the path he was on. JD's journey now was not only that of a politician, but also an inner battle, a struggle where one must confront the ghosts of the past and the pressures of the present. He remembered his father's words. Success doesn't come from empty praise, but from the ability to stand firm against the storms. In that moment, JD felt those words echoing in his mind, reminding him that everything comes with a price. On the journey home, the car glided through crowded streets, where neon lights and blaring horns blended into the chaotic symphony of the city. In JD's heart, the image of Usha strong, talented, and unafraid to confront was like a vivid painting, both alluring and full of contradictions. He wondered whether her intelligence and sharp wit were weapons to protect their family from the political storms, or a double-edged sword that might wound him if she no longer concealed her true emotion. That night, as the car pulled up in front of their luxurious mansion, JD and Usha silently stepped into the familiar space, which was also full of traces of modern life. The room was decorated with elegance, from the artistic paintings adorning the walls to the warm golden lights that created an inviting atmosphere. Yet, in that tranquility, JD's mind could not let go of the chaotic thoughts about the dramatic evening that had just passed. After Usha went to bed, JD sat alone in the living room, gazing out the window at the capital's nightscape. He recalled every word and every gesture Usha had made on the podium, and every piercing look from Trump. Each memory was like a piece of a tangled puzzle of his life, leaving him to wonder whether he was truly on the right path. He remembered the quiet afternoons spent with an old book, the early mornings filled with passionate energy when he first began to write the untitled chapters of his history. Now, beneath the lights of a sleepless city, he felt like a lost soul, amid countless dazzling yet scheming lights. The event at the Grand Meridian Hotel was gradually becoming a tale recounted as a cautionary warning to those daring enough to step into the political arena. Usha, with her strong presence and sharp words, left an indelible impression not only on the journalists, but also on the policymakers. She became the image of a woman unafraid to speak the truth, even if it meant facing harsh criticism from the public and the media. At the same time, JD's silence and his inexpressible demeanor served as a reminder that within every politician lie hidden pains, hopes, and insecurities. And then, under the dim lights of the old quarter, as everything gradually became peaceful, JD and Usha together stepped into a new chapter of their lives. A chapter where every person, whether strong or weak, must learn to love and accept themselves despite the scars of the heart and the storms of time. In those moments, they knew that although the past might be full of scars and painful memories, the future was still there, radiant and full of promise, like the stars in the night sky over Washington. As dawn slowly broke, JD woke with a refreshed spirit and an unyielding determination. He understood that each passing day was an opportunity to learn, to heal old wounds, and to build enduring values for the future. And even though the world of politics was riddled with intrigues, deceptions, and harsh words, he remained resolute in keeping his faith. For he knew that only honesty and courage could help him overcome every challenge. Throughout that journey, the image of Usha remained a constant, invisible source of inspiration. She was not only his life partner, but also his steadfast companion in facing all the storms of life. Even though there were moments when her sharp words hurt him, those very words also served as a remedy, helping him realize the true value of change and growth. And then, day by day, through every trial, JD gradually understood that nothing was more precious than the truth and loyalty to oneself. No matter how unpredictable the future might be, JD knew that he would never be alone. The companionship of Usha, the woman who was always strong, full of passion, and unafraid to speak out what others dared only to keep silent, was a tremendous source of support that helped him weather every storm. And no matter how harsh Washington's political landscape might become, he still believed that one day the truth would be celebrated and those who dared to stand up for their beliefs would always prevail. If this story has touched your heart, don't forget to share your thoughts about the story and let us know which city you're watching from. We'd love for you to share its message by liking and sharing it with your friends, helping us reach our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers, which means the world to us and allows us to create more meaningful stories for you. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you in our next story.